Hello, everyone. Um, Actually, this is my first tech conference in order to present something. Maybe I should have participated first before presenting something, but I figured I would just jump in without looking how deep the water is and see how it goes. But I practice with stand-up comedy because I have this personality trait that does not like to talk to people generally, and I need to get over this phobia. I need to get over this ability to not speak to people directly. And I thought, what better way than to speak to a lot of people at once? So this is why I'm here. I want to focus on the one thing is at the bottom is the best content conference. And this made it a little bit easier for me because we are content providers, regardless of the sector we work for. And this made me feel a little bit better because I'm a technical writer and I provide content. And even though maybe you're a product manager or you're some other type of manager, we do the same thing. We're trying to provide some information to end users. And that gave me some comfort. A little comfort, but still some comfort. Otherwise, I would not have done it. So, the topic of my presentation is perseverance in the war room. Now, this may sound like an interesting title, but what is a war room? Sometimes you think a war room is in a military sense, right? You have political leaders, you have the military, and I'm not a big fan of military, even though my brother is in the military. It's beside the point. But it's not what I think. I think on the left-hand side here, war room for me is that the customer needs to know what is being done, how it's being done, and if there's any problem, how can you fix it? So for me, that is a war room. So it's a gathering of minds when people sit together and they try to solve a problem. Now, is it a problem or multiple problems? What would be the single solution? Are you trying to provide a resolution for one issue to make the customer happy, or are you trying to solve many issues at the same time? How would you approach it? And is it a matter in telecommunications whether you want to solve it for the customer or for the end user, you who have a mobile device? So what are we trying to achieve? So my approach has always been on the left. Tackle one problem at a time. This creates, for me, as a writer, many more problems because I'm not able to do all of them at once. How can you solve them? But I always think of the end goal, end user, you who use it, you who have the mobile, you who are able to access your Facebook account and update your Twitter. That's what I see. I don't see the customer. I don't see T-Mobile. I see people's names. And I have to admit that perhaps it goes outside of the comfort zone because when you do your work, what do you see? What is your goal? So basically a war room is basically a room equipped, I don't have to read it. It's equipped with things where you can actually try to solve a problem. Easy as that. But can you work in an environment where people are looking over your shoulder at all times? I've been lucky enough to actually participate in many different types of pilots, which means I actually work with engineers who are on site. And the customer is always there. And they ask constant questions as to what you are doing. Why are you doing it? What will be the result? What are the consequences? Case in point here. In 2003, Google went down for about 2 minutes. A little bit less than that, but 2 minutes. It doesn't seem like a big deal, right? You just use something else, like Bing, Yahoo search, huh? No problem. But what is it about Google? People use it as a homepage. And if you have your phone and you try to access a search, you click send. What happens? You expect Google to respond. It was only down for less than 2 minutes. But how many people actually clicked send? As a result, 40% of traffic went down. Now, that's a lot. So, what do we have to do to solve this problem? You create a war room. You don't have to be locally together. You can be working remotely or whatever, but you have selected engineers trying to solve this problem. How do you solve it? And can you solve it immediately? Just to give you a bit of a background, you have to have a test environment and a live environment. So the live environment is where you actually are able to access the network. Test environment is a lab. But you need to test, make sure that it all works. So you have all these people working together, trying to solve this issue. It was only down for 2 minutes, but it took Nokia 5 hours to solve it. Now, full disclosure, Nokia has not fully supported what I'm saying, but it doesn't matter. I know for a fact it took 5 hours. So it's probably not a big deal, but how do you think the customer felt? Happy? 5 hours, it's a very long time. How much money did they lose in that period of time? Who knows? But how does a technical writer Sorry. I have strange ears. They're not aligned, so. How does a technical writer help in this? What can a writer do? Perhaps work alongside them, what I consider to be dynamic updates. What is a dynamic update? Meaning you update it in real time. You don't wait for the process to come into play. You do it as the customer requests. Is the process more important than the customer being happy or not? That begs the question, yes? When you first start and work, again, my ear, I apologize. When you first start, you know nothing. Well, that's not really accurate because you do know something because you were hired for a reason, but you have to admit that you do not know everything about the company you were hired for, yes? But over time, you're able to gather some experience and develop your skills in this particular area. I don't know if you know Malcolm Gladwell, but he wrote Outliers. I don't know if you know this book or not, but I'm a huge fan of The New Yorker. And he is one of the main contributors and has written, 5 or 6 books on this subject. And he says that maybe I'll take the mic. Sorry about that. Hello, sorry. Anyway, he said that it takes about 10,000 hours for you to master a specific area. He used the example of the Beatles, who were musicians, and they practiced a lot. But that was just an example in the book. Now, how much time is 10,000 hours? So let's look at 2016, for example. As you can see, it's really within a year, assuming you work 8 hours straight, mastering the skill. But is that true or not? No, you need to have lunch, you need to take breaks, and you need to do other things, right? You need to take care of other processing issues. But you can see if you do it within that year, you can do it with no problem. So we can give each other 2 years for you to master something. But the question is, are you comfortable enough, even after 10,000 hours, to actually prove a point? Can you actually do in front of the customer what you've been trained to do or what you've written? Simple fact is that problems will always occur. There's nothing you can do about that. It's a fact. So, approach for me is always just fix it. Update what you need to do. Let the customer feel happy. Great. Of course, afterwards becomes this issue of root cause analysis. Fine. And then a bigger question, and for me this has always been a troubling issue, is the process. Does the process needs to be updated or not? What is wrong? Is the process wrong? If you have such issues, then perhaps you don't need the process. Or maybe you should keep the process dynamic, not leave it to the writer to be the ones to determine whether they should update dynamically or not. Should the writer fit into the process, or should the process fit to the writer? This has always been a topic of contention with me and other people. But I feel that we as writers are the ones who actually have customer interface. We are the ones who actually provide content that customers read. Maybe it sounds a bit arrogant, but this is what I believe. Now, this is where I want to get into the personality trait. Lately, there is a buzzword because of this book. Angela Duckworth wrote a book published in May 2016 called Grit. And it basically gives academic research as to what makes people do certain things. Do people do it for a job, or do they do it because they have another goal in mind? To give you an example, I am standing here, sorry. I'm standing here because I have a personal goal to do this. Even though I'm still shaking and still very nervous, I'm doing it because I want to scratch something off my bucket list. But you know that my bucket list is always being added to, so I hope never to die, in other words, to continue with the bucket list, but I hope to continue with that. But perseverance is the topic that I gave you at the beginning. Now, what is it? It's very easy to understand. You just persist. You keep doing what you're doing. I'm a Catholic, and there's something known as perseverance of saints. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'll give you a story now. During my master's studies, I spent 9 months in a monastery in Assisi, St. Francis. And during that time, I met a lot of people who had many different ideas about life. And for me, the most interesting conversations I've always had have always been with those who are 80 or 90, who live their entire lives in a monastery. How did they cope with technology? How is it that they were able to live their lives completely, I wouldn't say hermits, but separate? They had Comfort knowing that they will achieve for themselves a greater good. They will actually go to heaven. Now, I know this probably sounds a bit strange, but for me it was quite nice that they had this comfort. They're able to sleep at night for that particular reason. So, you continue doing that. People mocked them, they made fun of them, but they still continued. It didn't matter. But for me, the most interesting point was meeting new people who were 18, 19, joining the monastery, having been introduced to technology, yet still willing to give it up for the monastic life. Why? So for me, that's perseverance. People make fun, but it doesn't matter. Now, grit. Grit is a bit more complicated. There's a film called True Grit, first made in 1968, and then I think 2015 by the Coen brothers, called True Grit. So what is grit? As you can see, grit is a bit longer. So what is it? It just means that you're able to endure more, persist for a longer period of time than just to persevere. But when do you say enough? When can you say, for example, that, okay, you've had enough? There's nothing wrong with that, because you know that the end goal was not within your scope, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But over time, you have to try to understand that you need that end goal to make you overcome the hurdle that's in front of you. Now, I'm speaking about myself. I am not giving you recommendations. You live your life as you wish. I'm not commenting on that. I'm just saying, for me, this is how I understand what I need to do. So, Grit. This is the book that I just mentioned. And I have to confess a bit more, because I've always thought that my life has always been a bit difficult, only because I've been raised a lower income family, and I can make excuses about my parents having 3 jobs or whatever. It doesn't matter. But I was able to overcome whatever limited opportunities I had. But I did. And so I continued. But generally, you encounter moments where you think that something is not quite right. You think that, what is it that I have to change about myself? What is it that I need to change? Is it my personality? Or is it my job? I don't know if you understand what I mean. But if you focus on the end goal, again, when I say one, I mean me, to focus on the end goal, then it will be okay. I've always been an admirer of philosophy. I read it a lot, and I love to read books. But there's always something beautiful about having this understanding that there is an end goal, that you have some purpose. But is it only about life, or is it also about work? With life, I think it's quite straightforward. But what about work? What is it about work? What is it that you are trying to achieve? What is the end goal? I'm not saying, for example, what you will be doing in 5 years. I'm saying, how do you want to be remembered? Not in life, at work. You understand? So, I equate both. I think that it should be both life and balance together. But you know, if you try to focus too much on work, it's going to overlap into your life. And then what do? So, focus on what? what would you focus on? I called it a personal journey because I'm talking about myself. I am not giving you advice. This is my journey. I assume you will have your own as well. But I'm thinking that, okay, what can I do to improve myself? Not only in life, but at work. We've heard a lot of different presentations about what you can do to improve team building and management, etc. But what can you do about yourself? And to be honest with you, I have no idea. Sorry, but I go and trudge along one day at a time, trying to figure it out. So, for me, this book was an awakening because it gave statistical information about what is the grit of something. You can easily give up because you felt underappreciated or you felt it was not what you wanted. You felt that, okay, I can see myself doing it for 2 years, but I cannot see myself doing it for 5 years. And that's fine. You accept it, and that's a respectable decision. There's nothing to be sorry about. But why do people trudge along trying to continue doing what they've been doing? The question about life should not be about what you plan to do within 5 years. The question is, what motivates you, or what motivated you as a child? What is it that you love to do as a child? You know, guidance counselors in the US always say that you should do whatever makes you happy for free, and then you should find the career that reflects that. Unfortunately, it's not always the case, right? It's sad. But you do it. I have to tell you now that for me, this is what is known as a confessional. When I was in the monastery, they said that, okay, why do you confess to a priest? Why do you confess in an enclosure? Why can't you confess, for example, to God directly? And again, this is without religion. It's because it's always nice for someone to hear you, someone to know that you've thought something and said something. So now I confess in front of you. That was my purpose, because we are content providers. This is what we do. Okay? Perhaps it was a bit dark and maybe a bit too much. It should have been happier. I wish I had more jokes, especially since I tried to do stand-up, but for me, that's what I do. I don't do very good presentations. Sorry, I apologize for that. It's always been my lack of talent. So, I don't know. Perhaps now we can go to questions.
Thank you, Rene. Who's got questions?
Yeah, I know.
No questions, really. Okay.
Hi, I'm Adam from Cambridge, and good.
Sorry, where?
Here, hello. Here.
Oh, there. Sorry.
Hi. No, it's a good job that you stood up and talked about stuff, because last year it was my first speech at a conference as well, and I know how it feels. So very good job.
I don't know. I don't feel it yet.
No, it's
So,
you'll
feel it.
once you walk out, you're gonna feel. I'm sure it's going to be an exhilarating feeling. I had that.
Thank you.
So you'll feel it. My kind of comment on grit and what you kind of described is, I think when it comes to someone's career, it's very easy to get lost if there is no end goal. And I noticed in many people's lives that they just kind of change jobs and and they just go on and on and on, and 20 years later they just realize, oh, my life's just gone. And I think if you follow any kind of guidance, or as you mentioned, you need to find your own grit and kind of goals, then it's going to help an awful lot, because that's what you should aim for. You basically find something, go for it. If you find out that it's just not good, just drop it, find something else. And I think it's a really good advice for like this young audience, because I know many of us are at the kind of beginning of our career or been in it like 2-3 years, and that's an awful lot of good advice in 30 minutes.
No, I agree that in the past, within, I think, a year and a half ago, I heard that some managers were very unhappy if they saw that someone worked in a company for a year and a half, 2 years, and moved on to another. And that's okay. I think that they just didn't find their nook, their purpose, and that's fine. There's nothing to worry about that. At the same time, you should not look at someone who's been working in a company for 8 years and think, he's happy. But I completely agree. So again, just find that purpose. Thank you.
Hi, my name is...
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Over here.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jacek, and I'm a technical writer, just like yourself. And I wanted to ask you about what you said on work-life balance in light of what I heard from yesterday's keynote speaker, who was talking about team building. Essentially, what he said was that your work is your life, and that you should let your work overlap your life, because this is who you are, and that you do not want to be a different person professionally and a completely different person when you're outside of your workplace. And how do you reflect upon that? Because if I understood you correctly, you said that without grit and perseverance, essentially our work and life, our professional and personal life start overlapping, and you wouldn't want that.
Yeah, because it's conflicting, right? You end up working weekends, and that's not healthy. You eat at your desk, and it's not healthy as well. But like I was introduced, is that I have a different personality. I've always been very closed, always. And I thought it was just normal because my father worked all the time. I thought this is what you had to do. It was just normal. But it doesn't mean that you should do it as well. At the end of the day, it's what makes you happy. And the question is, what makes you happy? That is not easy to answer, yes?
Yeah.
If you want money or you want a career satisfaction, it's not something that you can actually just get immediately. You just have to work your way through. I don't know. Again, I'm not giving advice. I am just giving you my opinion. It's only my opinion.
It's going to be different for everybody, right?
Yeah, of course. Because, like I said, you have an end goal. That end goal for everyone is different. It will always be different. So just need to find what it is. And I wonder, maybe there is some correlation of what that end goal is for everybody. Maybe if we were to do statistical analysis of what everybody wants, it will pinpoint to one thing. And that would be good.
All right, thank you.
No, thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, I'm Tomek. Rene, great presentation.
Thanks.
I have a question regarding this, as you called, dynamic process. Please help me to give some tips to young technical writers who actually want to have a checklist. I need to do this, this, and that. So how to explain them that sometimes you don't need to have a checklist because you need to have your work done. You need to write this instruction to solve particular problem. So, can you give some tips to, especially to young
in the
technical
previous slide,
writers?
I think, sorry to interrupt, but in the previous slide, I said that when you begin, you know nothing. And I think most people, when they're first hired, feel exactly this way. But over time, with experience, they gain knowledge. And that is when they can grow on their own. Checklists are good, but again, this is my opinion. As you become more experienced, they're not as required anymore. I think that we become content providers. No longer are we just writers. Now we actually provide content. We become our own SMEs, for example. And that's just how it goes. So for new writers, give them this journey that first, tree is good. It gets harder as it goes on, but you gain knowledge in the process.